Hello there. Good day, and welcome to Akweya TV, where we talk about history, arts, culture, and development. 2022 is in full swing, and a lot is going to happen this year. It's already begun happening, and we want to know what this year has in store for us in terms of literature. Last year, a lot happened, and yours sincerely was part of those that released an anthology, the second edition of Camouflage, the best of contemporary literature writings from Nigeria, which I co-edited with Nduka Otiono. Now, 2022, a lot is about to happen, and we're going to discuss on the show today what 2022 has in store. Some are unfolding today, and I've got with me a literary critic and author, a poet himself, who will be discussing. So hold on as I bring you that author. He's a great one. Stay tuned. Okay, so if you're just joining us, we are coming back to tell you what 2022 has in store for us in terms of literature in Nigeria and the whole of Africa. And the guest I have with me in the studio is none other than the fiery literary critic, Paul Liam. You're welcome.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure to be on Akweya TV.
Yeah. So, 2022. We've got so many things unfolding at once, and it seems to be planning that it's going to be exciting. And congratulations, you've been appointed one of the judges for one of the events, Here's Fest, in Niger. You're always one of the strong guests at the event. So let's start with Here's Fest. You know, it's been... the full meaning of Here's Fest is Hadiza
Aliu School's festival.
Festival. So, what's the exciting thing about Here's Fest?
Thank you very much once again for having me on Akweya TV, and in particular on this significant show to discuss some of the happenings in the literary cycle in the year 2022. Like you've said, a lot seems to be boiling down already. The Hadiza Aliu International School Festival, which is a cultural festival for secondary school and youngsters around Nigeria, which is held annually in the capital city of Minna, the capital city of Niger State. This year's edition is coming up on the 19th to 22nd of January 2022. And like you've mentioned at the beginning of the show, I have been appointed as one of the judges, one of the poetry judges. I will be working with Aminu Els Mohammed in judging the poetry category of the festival this year, as well as I did last year. So for me, the Higher Fest holds a lot of promise for Nigerian youngsters, for Nigerian aspiring literary creatives and artists in general, because it is not just about writing poetry or short stories or spoken words. It's also about painting, it's also about drama, it's also about cultural performances such as cultural dances, it's also about music, it's also about photography, as well as even science. So it encompasses all of the cultural aspects of our lives. And one of the basic or the underlying philosophy of Highfest, as we've come to know, is the philosophy of regeneration. The founder of the Hilltop Creative Arts Foundation, B.M. Zukogi, who is the chaperone for Highfest, as would continue to say that adults in our society today have become unbendable, if I were to use that phrase, but that to change society, that to create a brighter future for the society, we would need to begin to groom young leaders. We need to begin to groom creatives who would become visionaries, who would become people who would be altruistic, people who would shape what society should look like in terms of the kind of values that they would imbibe. So Highfest is a grooming ground using art to encourage youngsters, to encourage young people to think of themselves beyond what the dictates of society or beyond the limitations that the society has put before them. So I'm excited about Highfest 2022. I'm looking forward to it. In fact, my spirit is already in Mina. I am hoping that it is going to be even more beautiful than it was last year.
Yeah. Because Shoyinka, the Nobel laureate, was billed to be there, but somehow in the dying minutes, it seems to not be available. He had accepted before. That would have been a real high point for the event, wouldn't it be?
Yes, it would have been one of the greatest highlights of since the history of Highfest if the renowned Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka were to be in attendance. You would recall that a couple of years ago, when we were organizing the Muazu Babangida Aliyu International Literary Colloquium, which was also chevroned by B.M. Zukogi and others, we were able to bring in Wole Soyinka to Mina, where some of us who have become adults today, were very much younger, had the opportunity to meet him. Excuse me. As a literary figure, as a renowned global literary figure, aspiring writers in Africa and not just Nigeria look forward to seeing Wole Soyinka. It's an honor. He is an icon. He's a cultural icon. He represents the dream that most of these youngsters have. He's a symbol of knowledge. He's a symbol of education. So when we see him on television, when we hear him on radio, or when we see him in the newspaper, knowledge, we associate knowledge with him. So it would have been such a huge inspiration for the kids, for the youngsters, to have Soyinka, Wole Soyinka around, or the great Soyinka, not in quote, but the great Soyinka, you know, to inspire the next generation of literary stars, the next generation of educationists, the next generation of scientists who would rule the world. Taken from Soyinka's example. So it would be a great loss not having Soyinka around at this year's Highfest. As personally, I didn't get a chance at the last opportunity, or the last time that I saw him, to take a personal photograph with him. I was actually looking forward to having a personal photograph
with him,
with him, even though I had seen him on close contact when he came to Mina for one of the MBA colloquium. So I think it's a huge minus not having him around this time again.
Interesting. Dr. Wale Okediran, the Power General Secretary General, Pan-African Writers Association, it's also supposed to be in Mina for this Highfest. But I think for some reason he also is not likely to make it. But who knows? A lot of things might happen. And then via Zoom, they can connect. So hopefully.
Yes, I hope that the organizers of Highfest would be able to fashion out a process via which some of these icons could engage with these youngsters via Zoom or other means at the event. it's a thing of pride. It will be a thing of inspiration if you're able to see them talking directly to them,
yeah.
whether virtually or physically. So if they cannot be there physically, they could, through Zoom, connect and address the children, talk to them, inspire them with words. Dr. Okediran, of course, is also one of the pillars of Nigerian and African literature through his several artistic contributions to the development of literature in Nigeria, in particular what he has been doing with the Ebedi International Writers Residency. He's an inspiration to all of us.
Okay, that said, because you have now moved us to the next literary activity. So literary activity number 2 would be the Ebedi Writers Residency, which is in over 10 years now, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, which is a residency that has been bringing African writers together from different countries. Is it quarterly that the residency?
Biannually.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, should I say bi-monthly?
Okay. So it has a group of residents, sometimes all female and then another time all male.
Yes.
And now we have all male, right?
Yes.
So you were telling me an interesting story about one of the residents for this year.
Okay, yes. The Ebedi International Writers Residency in Iseyin, Oyo State, has been running for more than 10 years now, founded by Dr. Wale Okediran, like I said, a very industrious literary figure and icon who continues to contribute to the development of writers and literature in Africa and not just Nigeria. The residency, since inception, as I understand, has had over 100 residents, from across Africa, from Cameroon, from Kenya, from Uganda, from Togo, from Ghana, all around Africa. I think even from South Africa. So it's a Pan-African writers residency, and at some point in time it was like one of the only ones, the only functioning writers residencies in Africa, and of course the only one in Nigeria in the last 10 years, as far as I can remember. But this year's this year's residents provide for us quite an interesting insight. One of the residents from, I think, Gambia. And with the fellows group in the WhatsApp group where we follow him.
Sorry. For those who don't know, Mr. Paul Liam himself is a former resident.
Yes, I am. We call ourselves fellows.
Oh, fellows. Okay.
Yes, I am an Ebedi fellow. I was at the Ebedi residency in 2014. After which period I was awarded with an award of literary excellence for my contribution to Nigerian literature, to the development of literature in Nigeria, and to the residency.
Oh, wow.
Thanks. So one of the residents, as I was saying, came in from the Gambia, and he came in through the road.
Wow.
So I think he traveled for about 6 or 7 days from the Gambia, passing through different countries to be able to finally arrive in Nigeria. And we've been curious what it would feel like, to be able to embark on this kind of experience. And then and the group, we're looking at the import of that journey for Africa. Literature, an instrument of unification. Because of the residency, because of creativity, this person has traversed at least 3 persons has traversed at Nigeria. Look at the sacrifice. Look at the experiences that. Look at the sacrifice. Look at the experiences that he would have had. So it's like literature across borders. So we see how the import being the signification of uniting Africans from the different countries or from the different sub-regions that they belong to. It's for the love of literature that somebody would put himself through that kind of hardship through the desert at night and all the cold and all the risks, you know, traveling all through to Nigeria. I think it's a commendable thing. It shows one of the significant powers of literature, its ability to be able to unite people. And I think that Dr. Kediran is giving less credit for African literature. We were inspired by that individual's story. Sorry, I cannot remember his name at this. Many of us are interested in talking. Many of us are interested in talking about the story and what for him really. So it's a great experience. And one of Calteve is also
there
at the residency at this time. They will be rounding up, I think, in February. February, I think, in March or so, or by the end of February, the next batch. It's usually one batch male, one batch female, one batch male, one batch female, all through the year. So we expect that after this, the next batch is going to be female. Also, in general, you know that the Ebedi Review, which is a journal of the Ebedi International Writers Residency, has been on for the 4th edition. We published the 4th edition, which was to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Ebedi Residency. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the event that had been slated to hold in Ibadan, that it was supposed to be a huge physical event where many of the fellows were supposed to gather and celebrate. It was supposed to be a visit to the residency, to interact with the community and the likes, but we didn't. We're hoping that somehow fellows will be able to convene again and discuss and see how we could review and contribute to the great work that the residency is doing. And I am, of course, one of the founding editors of the review. And I would like to thank Okediran's generosity. And, you know, that is another way also of supporting and uniting Africans, because it's also a Pan-African journal that houses poets from all around Africa. All around Africa. So it's a beautiful thing, really.
And really, to give more credit, because Okediran has also been one of the recent ones who have ventured into movie making from writing, you know, taking a book and turning it into a movie, The Tenant of the House, which became one of the first literary works now that is in a movie form on Netflix. So if you are out there and you want to check Netflix for Tenants of the House, it's Dr. Okediran's movie from the Dr. Okediran book titled Tenants of the House. So you will really enjoy that. Now, moving on, before I tell you the other events, I think we'll go for a short break and then we return. Welcome back. So, we have been talking about the major literary events that will shape 2022. What does 2022 have for us in literature? And so far, with my guests, Paul Liam, the literary critic, we have talked about two main ones, the Hares Fest, the festival in Mina, Niger State, and we also talked about the residency in Oyo State, Iseyin, the Ebedi International Writers Residency. And another very interesting one is also something to look out for. You can win a prize. It's the Splendors of Dawn Poetry Competition that we're on anti-corruption and accountability, which is being run in conjunction with CITAD, the Center for Information Technology and Development, and with the support from the MacArthur Foundation. Hey, Paul, tell us a little more about this one.
I think one of the uniqueness, I should begin from the uniqueness of the Splendors of Dawn competition on anti-corruption, good governance, and accountability, is the fact that it is Splendors of Dawn Foundation is showing us how literary organization could become more practically involved in issues of development beyond appropriation of art and art practice in Nigeria. We know that very few literary organizations in Nigeria today are fully involved in the development issues. When I say development issues, I'm talking about issues of politics, issues of governance. How are we engaging the system? How are we engaging the state? How are we encouraging young people, for example, to become aware of their roles, to become engaged or involved in the political system? Because change, as we say, a functional society is not built by suppositions, it's not built by assumptions, it's not built by criticism alone. It is also built by practical involvement. And one thing that I think Splendors of Dawn competition is doing is drawing young creatives' attention to the need to become more aware politically, to become more concerned, to become more involved in the issues of governance, in the issues of politics, in the real issues that defines and controls their lives as human beings. Art, of course, shapes that perspective, but the more material elements that controls that existence, even including art, for example, is good governance. If you do not have a good governance in place, how then do you have a thriving environment for the arts? How does artists function? How do artists survive? When there is, for example, there has been the issue about the need to have, is it a book agenda for the country?
Yeah.
There is no book, there is no agenda.
Book development agenda.
There is no book development agenda.
Yeah.
You know, and then we say education is, knowledge is key, education is key, education is everything, but you are not encouraging the book, which is the fulcrum of knowledge, which is the basis for education.
Yeah.
You know, so creatives, people who are working to write books, works of literature, creative writings and the likes, that shapes how we think, that shapes our emotions, that turn us into altruistic human beings. Because for me, that is how I see the power of literature. So if young people do not understand that politics or governance has the power to influence what they do, they would not be able to appreciate their role and how they could contribute to making that change that they seek happen. So I think that is an area that Splendors is working on more drastically, or more, should I say, maybe creatively through, you know, the competition. And it's also a good thing that would support from CITAD. CITAD is, because CITAD has been doing a lot of things in terms of the creative sector. How do we use the creative sectors or creatives to speak to society? I mean, beyond what the creatives do normally in terms of their representations, their mirroring societies through their writings. But how do they engage the state? How do they engage the system? How do they become practical and realistic participants who do not always seek an utopian society, but who are willing to be part of the creation of that utopia that they seek? So I think it's a beautiful thing that funders such as MacArthur Foundation and other NGOs like CITAD are working consciously in saying that they are involving more creatives, more creative people, more creative organizations in terms of broadening the frontiers of engaging with the system, engaging with society. Because it's not also only about people who are in the development sectors, who are in the NGO sectors. There are writers who are influencers in their own right. How do you use creative writers who are influencers in their secondary school, in the university, in their places of work, to be able to, you know, advance these messages of involvement, of politics, of anti-corruption, of accountability and transparency in their various cycles? So I think it's an eye-opener, and it's something that we should encourage funders to look into, like CITAD and MacArthur, to do more in terms of involving more creatives who would preach these messages of good governance and accountability in our system. So I think the competition holds a lot of promise. This is the second edition from the previous edition, which was held last year. Was it 2 years ago? Which featured some brilliant writers, contemporary poets, and short story writers. I think the competition is doing a lot, you know, in raising awareness amongst young people, especially on the social media. It's not just that they are contesting in a competition to win something. It's the fact that because they are talking about corruption, because they are talking about accountability, because they are talking about transparency, they become more aware of these issues. They have a mental picture. Because they participate and they have won, then that sense of, I need to do this. If I'm talking about this not being the right thing, I need to do the right thing. I need to advise my friends. I need to talk to my people. But I need to do the right thing first before I would expect other people to do the right thing. So I think that the competition has the capacity to instill this consciousness in the minds of these young people in terms of awareness, creation, and participation. So I think the competition is going to run throughout this year and possibly the next year to come. So I think it holds a lot of promise for Nigerian creatives, especially young people under the age of 30, I think, who are the sole targets or audience for this particular competition. So it's a beautiful thing. I commend them for what they're doing.
Yeah, great. I want to read the winning entry in the first one, the first edition of this. I'm sure it's going to be on, if you are on the Splendors of Dawn Facebook page, you can see the winning entry by Abdurazak Salihu. And it's titled Constitution for Boys on How a Bullet Works. So it says, I bury the skin of dead people in my mouth, push their collected illiteracy down my throat, and I watch my body rot. For the countless boys that sought the Constitution on how a bullet works, you lit your hair and you are on fire. You carry the night and you are lost, a child marking the beginning of moles on sagging bodies, falling, falling, fading into a folded tongue. Like boys his age that sought to know a bullet's wrath. No to corruption, vote for accountability. Abdurazak Salihu. Really, I want to applaud that poem. What do you think about it?
When I saw that poem, I was marveled, especially when I learned that the writer of that poem is just 17 years old. And I couldn't, should I say, not understand, but I was wowed by his sense of metaphorization, his sense of literariness, his ability to represent the EndSARS dilemma in such a way that it does not suggest that he's talking about the EndSARS. For me, because you can liken the representation in that poem to what happened during the EndSARS protest, which was basically by young people. And then we see young people's involvement, which was repelled by government aggression, by government forces. There were claims about losses of lives here and there at Lekki toll gate. So I see, when I read the poem, that readily came to my mind. And I said, I wouldn't have known that the boy, for example, the poet is so conscious of this reality. But he has so cleverly talked about these ills, the disconnect between the system and its people in such a clever and in such a poetic way that you would think this thing was written by, say,
60-year-old.
By a 60-year-old person who has been in literature or who has been involved in writing poetry for such a long time. So, to be honest, I was marveled at his brilliance. And I think Abdurazak Salihu has a long, way to go. He has the whole future ahead of him. If he continues like this, we shall have a poet laureate, on our hands. And funny enough, or should I say interestingly, I think he's also involved in the High Fest. He's one of, yes, he's from Niger State. Incidentally, I think he's from there. And I find it interesting and that is associated with BM Zukogi and the Hilltop Art Foundation and High Fest thing. I think it's something of note, the kind of contribution that High Fest and the Hilltop Creative Art Foundation is doing in terms of propelling young people to uncovering their potential and harnessing their raw talents. This is a sign, a good sign, in my opinion, of the great promise that young people like Abdulrazak Salihu hold for Nigeria. I thank my friend Femi Morgan, who was the judge for the for the first edition of the second edition of the Splendors of Dawn competition. He did a brilliant job. And looking at this win, we couldn't have trusted a better person, you know, to judge this competition. I'm happy with the result. This is a brilliant, it's not just brilliant poetically, but look at the content. Look at the thoughtfulness of the poet, the consciousness of the poet as you could relate, you know, with in the poem. So I think the competition is promoting creativity as well as the boosting the consciousness of young people, and we see all of this in Abdulrazak's poem. Exactly. It's brilliant.
It's really brilliant. When I read it first, I thought about prodigious young poets then, like Sadiq Zukogi, when he used to contribute to the Young Trusters and all of that. You see, people would say, "Are you sure you are not writing on behalf of these children?" And I said, "No, these people are writing." And I have seen Sadiq Zukogi during ASCAFs, the annual schools carnival of arts, the defunct ASCAFs, how he wrote on the spur of the moment, you know, topics that he never knew about, and his sense of the use of metaphors and other literary devices were amazing, amazing. But hey, life goes on and a new generation is taking over.
I mean, we could see from the example of Sadiq Zukogi. Sadiq is in the U.S. now, pursuing his PhD.
Nebraska.
University of Nebraska, where he's pursuing his PhD. And we've seen over the years how Sadiq has metamorphosed into a poetic giant within his generation. He has become a role model for a lot of poets, especially new poets or emerging poets. He's my contemporary. We were together in Mina doing all the stuff together. We've seen through Sadiq's achievements and excellence as a poet, because when you talk about one of the most important African poets today writing, you must mention Sadiq's Zukogi's name. And for me, I'm looking at the Abdulrazak Salihu's example. This is how we all began. This is how Sadiq Zukogi began. His first teen collection was published in 2004. Look at how he has risen. People who do not know would think, maybe he just woke up, he's an opportunist, he just got one opportunity. No. But the young man has paid his price. Sadiq Zukogi has been grinding his back in the literary scene for almost 2 decades now. And we are his friends and colleagues are proud of him. I, in particular, am proud of what he has achieved for himself. It shows that with dedication, focus, and determination, nothing is impossible. He believed in poetry, and poetry has taken him around the world. And I think people like Abdulrazak Salihu have the capacity to become what Sadiq Zukogi is tomorrow. I wish them all the best.
Thank you very much. And now the last one that we're watching is actually unfolding today, but it's going to shape a lot of things, which is the Kwaraption, the Engausa poetry collection. And again, by some coincidence, it's in Kano, but it's also being supported by CITAD, the Center for Information and Technology and Development. The beauty is Engausa. Can you tell us a bit about what that is?
Although I am not an expert of Engausa, but I happen to have been following the conversation surrounding that very unique anthology I think it's a phenomenal anthology that is being launched today in Kano, as you have mentioned, supported by CITAD, and I think the MacArthur Foundation as well.
Yeah.
That collection is a watershed in northern Nigerian poetry. For me, it is opening a new vista into the evolution of poetry writing in northern Nigeria. Of course, we know that northern Nigeria has a rooted and a deep history when it comes to poetry writing. But this is a new invention. I happen to have the privilege to provide a blob for the anthology.
Oh, great.
Yes, I provided a blob for the anthology. And one of the things that struck me about the anthology is its inventiveness.
Yeah.
So this is a collection that is not a bilingual collection.
Yeah.
And Engausa is a coinage from English and the Hausa language.
Yeah.
So there is this uniqueness about how the Hausa people speak English.
Yeah.
And it is like what the Igbos do, Igbo English. I don't know if it's Igbo English they call it or something.
Igbo.
Igbo, for example. Maybe I don't know if there is something like that, but there is something. But you know that, for example, the Igbos, there is no how that the Igbo man will speak Igbo fluently without putting in some English.
Yeah.
Even though that English doesn't come in the context of its original expression in English.
No.
It comes within the context of its Igbotic essence. Yet the communicators understand and flows with it.
Yeah.
It is the Hausa version that has been translated into what they
Is that what the linguists call code mixing or code switching?
yes,
Which one of them?
yes.
Code mixing?
Yes, code switching.
Switching, okay.
Yeah, so you switch from one language in between conversation.
Okay.
You know, you're not translating,
Yeah.
but you're using one word to stand for something, and it stands,
Yeah.
and the conversation continues without you having to explain what it means to the person you're talking to. So we find this element also in the Hausa-speaking people, and then Engausa. I've been having a problem mastering the pronunciation. Engausa is like an invention of a poetic form that is rooted in English and in Hausa. But it has its own uniqueness because the poem. Each of the poem must have the element of English and the element of Hausa language embedded in them. So it's like the normal way that you would be discussing Hausa, or you'd be discussing Hausa with someone, and then you're using English here and there. So some of the words, the poems are not totally written in Hausa, they are not totally written in English. So it's a mixture of English and Hausa. And I find that very, very interesting. And Khalid Imam and Ola Fatimehi, Professor Al-Bishak, and some others from Kano have been at the forefront of, promoting and ensuring that it becomes like a form of poetry that is documented, that is practiced in northern Nigeria. So for me, to launch this anthology today is significant in terms of it is inventive in showing that, yes, we are not just copying the Western style that has been there, that we've been taught, that we've been practicing, but that we can also invent something of our own, invent a form of poetry of our own that is written, of course, with the Roman alphabet or, stuff, or the English alphabet, but has its rootedness in our culture, in where we are coming from. That is what I have seen. And it's a beautiful, just like our oral poetry, and the poetry of our forebears is rooted in the orality of the African epistemology and the like. So all of these things are things that we take note of. So I think that it is significant that that anthology is being launched today, which will open a new chapter in how poetry is conceived in northern Nigeria and the variety that it will bring, on board in terms of our poetic expression. So it's a commendable thing that CITAD is championing with, I think, with collaboration with AppNet, All Poet Network.
And Akweya TV actually was at the beginning, the webinar that that was organized in conjunction with Akweya TV.
Oh, okay. And Akweya TV,
Yeah.
of course. And then with funding from MacArthur Foundation through CITAD.
Yeah.
So I think these are beautiful things that are happening for literature and for writers in Nigeria. We are not just celebrating, we are not just promoting, but we are also inventing.
Yeah.
And it's something that is worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
As a literary critic, I'm interested in how these developments are shaping literary culture and culture in general in Nigeria within the contemporary times.
Great.
And I hope that I will be able to do more research on some of these aspects of our development as in the nearest future.
All right. Thank you so much. Before we go, I know that there are also organizations we should look out for that will shape creative writing and the whole of literature in 2022. I would mention the Poets in Nigeria,
Yes,
PIN. They have activities across different states of the Federation.
True.
And the annual the annual Festival of Poetry Calabar that usually happens in Calabar. So look out for Poets in Nigeria activity. You can check them up on Facebook, Poets in Nigeria, PIN. That you're going to see.
Abuja Literary Society is
Abuja
also
Literary
there.
Society is there.
AWF is also there.
AWF,
Abuja Writers Forum.
Abuja Writers Forum by
Lagos
Dr. Iman Shehu.
Book Festival.
There was Book and Art Festival, Labaf.
Yeah.
And then Ake
is also
Ake
there.
is there.
The Ake Festival.
The Kaduna Book and Art Festival
is also there.
Is there. We are also expecting the World Poetry Day is going to spin a lot of activities. We're going to have activities in Abuja with Splendors and some groups,
Arojah.
Halima Factor, Arojah, and even Fahimta, Salamatu Sule's.
Okay,
So there are some events in the offing, so look out for World Poetry Day in March. In Port Harcourt, I know that Ekaite George's group, they are also planning some activities. So this year, there's a lot for you. Engausa, if you want to know about that, check out the All Poets Network and you'll find a lot there. So thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to a lot that we'll be sharing with a lot of people this year on literature. Akweya TV, we are always ready to bring you history, arts, culture, and development. Thank you very much for staying tuned, and see you. Please like our Facebook pages, our pages on Instagram. The most interesting one now is TikTok. So we have you covered on all social media platforms. And thank you for remaining with us.